So, what previous experience have you had with ASL and sign language in schools?
So the first job out of college, while I was working on my master's, I was working at a school for kids who are struggling with learning disabilities, and also it was a school for the deaf and hard of hearing. So about 50% of my students were either completely deaf or hard of hearing. They all knew sign language, and so my role when I started there was I had to take sign language classes, learn sign language, and use sign language in the classroom. So we did have interpreters, but all the staff was also expected to know at least conversationally how to sign with the students. I also started a program at that school where I used sign language to work with my students who are on the autism spectrum. So we started classes for our hearing students where our hearing students could take an elective to learn sign language, and we really persuaded all of our kids on the spectrum to take and learn sign language to improve their social skills, facial expression recognition, emotion recognition, and things like that. So I was kind of the person who started those classes, so I was teaching sign language classes to hearing students at the school as well.
That is really neat. I too am also on the autism spectrum.
Are you learning sign language?
As much as I can.
Yeah.
I don't have any formal training, so I'm learning it all from this one little app, and it's kind of helpful. Know a little bit.
In college for my master's, I actually did my thesis on using sign language to improve, like I said, kind of like emotion, facial recognition, facial expressions with students on the autism spectrum, and also improving reading scores for students who have dyslexia. So there's a lot of benefits for pretty much anyone to learn sign language.
Yeah. How long does it usually take to teach a class in sign language, like a full curriculum?
So the class I taught, it was a basic sign language course for hearing students, and it was a one semester class. So one semester, but it was pretty much like sign language 1A type thing. So, kind of just the basics to get you conversationally comfortable using sign language. I wouldn't say conversationally fluent, but at least kind of knowing, the alphabet, and then like a lot of common vocabulary, and also focused a lot on the structure of sign language as well, because it's not always structured the same as English is. So a little bit of that as well.
So while you're at that school, did your school have like sports or any like extracurricular programs that they were able to use sign language in?
We didn't have, so it was a really small school. It was a nonprofit private school run through the Methodist Church, and we didn't have any like official sports. We just did kind of like intramural and club sports. But all of our sports teams, they were deaf kids and hearing kids together in all the programs, all the extracurriculars. And so most of our hearing students actually started picking up sign language just to communicate with their friends and things like that. But sports, it can definitely be beneficial to know sign language. We did have a softball team that we would play like other school club teams and things like that. So knowing sign language was able to kind of help with, plays and directions without the other team knowing and things like that.
Yeah. Did you have any theater there?
We did not have theater.
All right.
No.
I've tried to figure out how that has been worked with sign language and stuff.
Yeah, we didn't have a theater department. We did have a music department. And so we did have a big, like a lot of our kids, a lot of our deaf students were involved in the music department knowing sign language. And so they would sign a lot of the songs. Like we had chapel services and things. So at the chapel services, they would sign the songs. And a lot of music is actually, at least for my students that I worked with, a pretty big component of their lives, just like hearing students. A lot of them are able to feel like the vibrations of the music and really enjoy listening to music. So I'd say our music department was pretty split, like 50-50 hearing and deaf population.
That is really neat.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really and it's really beautiful, like seeing songs signed, because it's like super visual and powerful and emotional and all that stuff. So
what other school adaptations did you have to do with, like, the building and stuff? Did you have to do anything with the building?
Yeah, so as far as the building, to make it adapted for our deaf students, we have like visual bells. So in between classes, in every classroom, the bell would like shine a light, flash a light. So instead of hearing it, well, it would ring as well, but then also flash the light for transition times, and in the hallway, flashing the light as well. Other than that, the school I worked at was a residential school, so all the kids lived there. So in the dorms, there were a lot of kind of adaptations for our deaf students. So for instance, for alarms, they would have like a vibrating alarm under their beds, like to wake up in the morning, where it vibrates their whole mattress instead of having an alarm clock. The blinking fire alarms and things like that, smoke detectors, everything's adapted to flash a light instead of sound, or as well as sound an alarm.
Yeah.
I think that's probably like the major adaptions. You really don't need maybe as much as one might think when everyone knows sign language. So like at my school, I'd say 80% of the students and faculty who were hearing also knew sign language, so it was pretty easy to kind of it was pretty normalized at the school I worked at.
So, do you think we'd be able to someday maybe put an ASL class here at school?
I think we definitely do an ASL class for sure. I'm not certified to teach like a formal ASL class where you get high school credit for.
Yeah.
But it would definitely be something I think a lot of students would be interested in, and it would be pretty easy to implement if either we had someone come in to teach it, or I know you can also they have like online classes like for ASL, just like any other language or something like that. I don't think it would be a difficult thing to do.
All right.
Yeah.
That should be all.
All right, cool.